All right, today we're jumping into something that, well, it's a little tough. It's based on this piece of writing that asks a really personal, maybe even uncomfortable question. A question that pretty much forces you to take a hard look in the mirror. And here it is. Are you a confidence trickster? Yeah, I know. It's not exactly a fun question to ask yourself. But the whole point of the source material is that it's a vital one. So before we go any farther, let's really break down what we even mean by that term, confidence trickster, at least in this context. First things first, get those images of movie villains and slick, elaborate con artists out of your head. That's not what this is about. This is about something way closer to home. We're talking about those small, subtle behaviors that, over time, can really start to eat away at our character. And here is a really important distinction the source material makes. This isn't about being a sociopath, not at all. It's about a pattern of behavior, a pattern that comes from, well, from something missing, something that's not quite developed on the inside. So what's missing? The author calls them the three missing muscles. And they are drive, willpower, and self-respect. Think about it. If you're lacking drive, you're going to avoid doing the right thing if it's hard. If you're missing willpower, you'll just fold, the second things get uncomfortable. And if you don't have that core self-respect, well, you can find a way to justify pretty much anything. Okay, so how does this actually show up in real life, these missing muscles? That brings us to what the author calls the anatomy of the con. And here, we're going to look at the small, everyday things that can slowly, almost silently, eat away at who we are. I love this quote. It just nails the core argument perfectly. The idea is that the little internal permission slip you write yourself, the one that says, what I want is more important than your well-being, it's the exact same thought process whether the stakes are huge or tiny. The scale of the act, it doesn't change the fundamental nature of it. And this kind of cheating, it shows up in all sorts of disguises. It might be that dramatic sob story you tell to get sympathy. Or, that tiny little fudge on your taxes because just this once. Or maybe it's beefing up your resume just a little too much. It can even be weaponizing a real struggle you have, turning it into a script to manipulate people. Or, hey, even just taking advantage of someone's kindness because, let's be honest, it's just easier than doing the work yourself. So the big question is, how do you spot the difference? How can you tell a genuine crisis from a con? Well, the author has this simple little sniff test. Someone in a real crisis, they're taking action, they're making humble requests. Someone running a con, it's all about endless excuses, justifications, maybe some shiny new gadgets, and this attitude that just demands you ignore your own doubts. And this whole idea of a performance, it even applies to what we call white lies. The little ones. The source material makes a powerful point here. When you lie to keep the peace, you're not actually being kind. You're just shielding yourself from a moment of discomfort. And what's the long-term cost? You completely destroy trust. All right, this is it. We're getting to the very heart of this whole thing. It's time to look in the mirror. The author lays out a series of questions, and there's really only one rule here. You have to answer honestly without flinching. So let's just take these one by one and really be honest with yourself. Think about the small stuff. A few extra minutes of someone's time you didn't really ask for, an idea you kind of borrowed in a meeting, that soda from the office fridge. Does that little voice in your head that says, they won't miss it, sound at all familiar? Okay, next question. This one is all about perception management. Do you ever find yourself editing the truth? Leaving out a detail here, exaggerating something there, all to make yourself look a little better, get a slight advantage, or even just to get a simple nod of approval? What about this one? This is a tough one. It's about resources. Do you ever accept help or attention or kindness that, if you're being really honest, you don't actually need? Knowing that by taking it, you might be diverting it from someone who truly does. Let's circle back to those so-called white lies. Are you using them to dodge a difficult conversation? And maybe more importantly, are you telling yourself that you're doing it to be kind to the other person when really you're just protecting yourself? Now, this next one is about patterns. Look, everybody messes up, right? But I meant well your go-to excuse. Do you find yourself consistently using your good intentions as a shield for your bad behavior? This one's a little different. It asks you to look outside yourself. Have you ever gotten the feeling that people seem, a little wary around you, even when you think you're being perfectly nice? The thing is, sometimes People can just sense when something's not genuine. They can feel a performance. And finally, this is the moment of truth. When you get caught, when someone calls you out on something, what's your first instinct? Is it to genuinely apologize and try to fix whatever harm you caused? Or is it to immediately go into damage control mode, to manage perceptions, explain it all away, and protect your reputation? Whew. Okay, if any of those questions stung a little bit, the author says that's actually a good thing. Seriously, that feeling, that discomfort, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's data, and data is powerful. It's something you can actually use to make a change. Because that's the whole point, right? This isn't just about diagnosing a problem and feeling bad about it. It's about a cure. The source gives us 5, let's call them hard pivots, 5 concrete ways to make a real change. So here they are, the 5 hard pivots. Now, they sound simple, but they are definitely not easy. Number 1, tell the whole truth and tell it early. Stop editing everything for comfort. 2, ask before you take, always. Make it a micro habit. 3, pay your debts. That means repaying borrowed trust with real action. 4, do the unglamorous work. Earn the things you claim to be. And 5, choose repair over reputation. Focus on fixing the actual behavior, not just how it looks to other people. The source also throws in this optional but really powerful tool if you're serious about this. It's this. Give 1 or 2 people you really trust permission to call you out, like in real time, right when it happens. Because the author argues that real, honest accountability, that's a much better friend than cheap flattery. When you put it all together, the missing muscles, the little corrosive acts, the hard pivots to change, it all really points to one final, incredibly powerful idea. This quote really sums up the entire game. A con artist, a trickster, they live in that gap, the space between what people hope is true and what's actually true. So the solution, both for yourself and when you're dealing with other people, is to just close that gap. Be the kind of person whose actions and words line up consistently. In other words, be verifiable. So we'll end on the author's final thought, which I think is just brilliant. If any of this felt a little too familiar, if any of those mirror questions left a mark on you, remember this. That feeling, that's not a bruise. That's a door. It's a doorway to becoming a more honest, more trustworthy, more verifiable version of yourself. Your job is to open it.